Hey, I'm Miles.
I'm Walter.
And we're here today to talk about this, the Mark V Volkswagen GTI.
And you know, before we get started, as you know, Miles is originally from England, and he talks funny with that British accent. Here in the United States, we talk American. So I'm going to try to interpret for you today some of the things that he's saying.
Great, thanks Walter. So this, as I mentioned, the Mark V Volkswagen GTI. This car's been in production, the original GTI, back in 1975. We're now up to the 5th generation. This car is synonymous with hot hatch. This is the original hot hatch, combining performance and practicality in an affordable package. And this car is no exception to that. Some of the cars in the 90s lost some of that performance edge as they veered a little bit more towards practicality. They lost some of the performance stats that the car was known for. But the Mark V was famous for going back to the roots of what made the GTI so great. It was replaced obviously by the Mark VI, the 6th generation. We're now up to the Mark VII, and the Mark VIII is going to be coming out in a couple of years' time. So let's talk about this specific car. This is a 2007 model. I got it as a 3-door. It also came available as a 5-door.
And folks, in the United States, we actually call this a 2-door.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, as I said, it's a 3-door car, counting the hatch in the back. I opted for package 1, which came with a sunroof and satellite radio. The cloth-clad interior was standard. It's a little bit of a divisive feature. I personally love it. I think it looks great. It's a homage to the original Golf GTI back in the 1970s, but I do get a lot of comments about it, and some of them are actually good. So let's talk about the styling of the car. I really like it. I think it has a very unfussy, simple, almost Germanic, which makes sense, design aesthetic. I prefer it actually to the current Mark VII. I think that's a little bit too angular. It doesn't look as good. I think this car has aged really well. I love the view from the 3/4 angle of this car. I think that looks really good. You might have noticed the wheels. These are not original Volkswagen wheels. Originally it came with the Volkswagen 18-inch wheels. I really love those wheels. I thought they looked great. In fact, I actually sought out this particular model that had these wheels in this configuration, this color, because I liked them so much. Unfortunately, I was driving on the freeway actually to meet Walter a couple of years ago, and I got a flat tire, and when we took the wheel off together, we noticed a huge 3-inch hole punctured right through the rim, which pretty much game over for those wheels. So instead of trying to find a replacement and get a brand new set, because a couple others, as I mentioned, were scuffed, I decided to go with new wheels. So let's talk about the styling at the back of the car. So a couple of things I really love about this look. First of all, this little mini spoiler here at the top of the boot lid. I think that's a really nice touch.
And when he says boot lid, he means the trunk.
Yes, the boot, like I said. And we have this nice big Volkswagen logo badge at the back, which actually also doubles as a way to open the boot. So let's talk about some of the styling here at the front of the car. The honeycomb grille here, I just think that's a really nice touch, and it also comes down here as well, right underneath the bonnet here. That's a really nice touch.
And folks, when he says bonnet, he means the hood.
Yes, that's right. And then also we have this red stripe, and of course every GTI has to have the red stripe on the nose, dating back to the original GTI back in the 70s, and that also is subtle, but it's there, and I think it looks really great. So let's talk about the engine here under the bonnet. So under here we have a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine producing about 197 brake horsepower, about 207 pound-feet of torque. And it's a lot of power for a small little car like this. 0 to 60, depending on the transmission you get, is about 6.5 to 7 seconds. I've got the 6-speed DSG automatic transmission in here, which gets you to about 6.5. I've even read some people actually have it under 6 seconds, although I can't verify that myself. Top speed's about 150 miles per hour and change, about 152. Of course, I've never got it that fast, but I could believe it. And it's such a small, light car that it really just keeps accelerating, and it's great fun to drive around town. We're up here on Mulholland Highway in the Santa Monica Mountains, and it's a really nice stretch of road. And you know, it really just goes to show how great this car is. It's so versatile. It's happy here on these windy roads. It's happy in the city. It's happy on the freeway. It really is just a very versatile car, and you really can throw it into the corners, and it really handles it, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I was really amazed. You were taking some turns pretty sharply, and the car really just kind of hugs the curves. I mean, it's really impressive.
Yeah, it really does. And let's talk about the transmission. So this car has the 6-speed DSG dual clutch automatic transmission, and you know, it's a really good transmission. It's very smooth, very quick gear changes. The car has these very cool paddle shifters here behind the wheel, and you can instantaneously just shift down and that's a lot of fun when you're driving on a road like this. I don't really use it that much in the city, but out driving on the open road, it really is a lot of fun. I can also shift over here, and then I've got a quick up and down shift, which is also very nice, almost like playing a video game. And lastly, there's a sport mode that just basically increases the time between shifts, so you get a lot more power before the car ultimately shifts up, and that's a lot of fun. I use that a lot, especially on the freeway or when I'm overtaking, and you just hear the engine revving higher, which is really great.
Miles, do you know which car Volkswagen has sold the most of?
I don't, but if I had to hazard a guess, I guess I'd say maybe the Beetle.
That's a great guess, but actually the Volkswagen Golf has overtaken the Beetle. Volkswagen has produced over 30 million cars of the Golf as of 2012, and up until then there were only 21 million Beetles made.
All right, so we've had a driver change here. Walter, what do you think? First impressions?
A pretty amazing car. I think it has great response, great acceleration. We're not talking about a Ferrari, of course,
no.
but for a Volkswagen GTI, I mean, it's very responsive, and a car this size, it gives a lot of feedback. I think it handles really well, and I have a lot of confidence in this car driving it.
What do you think about the driving position, Walter?
I think it's pretty good. I really like the feel of the steering wheel. It's a nice, chunky, thick steering wheel, and I one time drove an old car from the 60s, and the steering wheel was really, really narrow, and I realized how nice, thick steering wheels are to handle. They just feel better in your hand. So Miles, I rented a Golf GTI from a gentleman in Boston, and he had shipped it and installed other performance modifications to the car. And when I drove it, I have to say it was really, really fast. But the car had a lot of trouble keeping all of that horsepower down on the ground.
Yeah, this car is very popular with the modding community. You can easily mod it, as you said. You can chip the engine. You can add a lot of other performance modifications as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the interior. First of all, I really like the steering wheel. It's kind of big and chunky, but you have these buttons here that are easy to access to control the stereo and things like that. We also have these paddle shifters here at the back. They feel really solid. They're a little small. They're not as nice as the big ones you get on the Ferraris and cars like that, but they are very solid. They don't feel flimsy at all. I really like this metal trim that we have here. This runs throughout the cockpit. It's a really nice little detail. It's subtle, but I think it looks great. And also in the interior here at night, these dials all light up blue, which looks really nice. And also the interior is bathed in a red glow, which is just really cool. It just feels nice. Let's talk about the navigation system. So I mentioned this at the beginning. This is an $1,800 option that I optioned when I bought the car, and I have to tell you, I regret it. It's not a touchscreen, but it has a number of controls here. It's a very early DVD-based navigation system, and quite frankly, it sucks. One of the problems with it is that whenever you want to enter a destination, you have to type in the number and the street name, and you have to type that out, and it fills it in from a list that it has on the DVD. The problem is, if you don't know the exact spelling, maybe it's an Avenue West, you don't know, is it Ave W, is it Ave West, you don't know how it's spelled. It's very inconsistent. And this is definitely better than nothing, but with the advent of smartphones and Waze and Google Maps and things like that, I just don't use this system anymore. I have my cell phone mounted right here, and I use that instead. Another feature of this car that I also don't use very much anymore is right here under the armrest. Guess what there is? Well, there is a 6 CD changer. Now, when I bought this car in 2007, this was a pretty cool feature, and I used it all the time, but frankly, who listens to CDs anymore? I might as well have an 8-track player under here. But it is actually kind of a nice, solid system, and, it loads up 6 CDs, and you can have them in there. This is actually kind of a time capsule, because sometimes I remember it's here, and I think, oh, what CD do I have? And I pull it out, and I found I've actually got a mixtape that I've made, or a mixed CD, but yeah, I don't listen to these very often, so this doesn't get any use anymore. So in terms of maintenance for this car, it's very affordable to run. Of course, it's a Volkswagen, so well built and cheap to run also. I've been maintaining it with the dealer for about the first 8 years, and services were never more than about $150, so very affordable. The only major piece of maintenance I had to have done about 2 years ago was replacing the air conditioning compressor. That set me back about $1,200, but supposedly this particular model year had an inferior compressor that was prone to failure, and I read online that a lot of people had the same problem, so I don't think that's necessarily representative of the car as a whole. Obviously in the hot California climate, replacing the air conditioning compressor and making sure that's running running well is definitely a priority. In terms of gas mileage, Volkswagen will say you get about 25 mpg in the city and probably 30 to 35 on the freeway. Obviously, depending on how heavy your foot is. I tend to get probably low 20s in the city, but that's just the way I drive. I've known other people to drive this car and get high 20s. So pretty good gas mileage for a car this old. Alright guys, so that's about it. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. And Walter, as always, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun driving your car, Miles, too.
Absolutely. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and we'll see you again next time, guys.
Take care.
But you know, I'm a Formula One driver. Whoa! What's he?